Okay, well, our next topic that we're going to talk about is this idea of visual weight. So if you're making a scene, you're not going to put all of the same types of objects in. They're going to be different. Well, these different types of objects can appear, or we interpret them as weighing more, even though they're virtual, they don't weigh anything. Or if in painting they're two-dimensional, they still don't weigh anything, but we interpret them differently. And so there are some things that impact how we interpret that. So just to quickly go through them, obviously size. If something's larger, we're going to think it weighs more than something smaller. Colors can also influence how heavy we think something is, right? So we perceive some colors as being heavier than others, with red being the heaviest and yellow being the lightest. The density of the objects. So if you pack more things into one area of space than the other, it's going to seem heavier, okay, than the more sparsely populated area. Again, this kind of goes along with our experience and understanding of the world. Okay, the value, which is the sort of lightness, darkness, the sort of grayscale of the object. So the darker the object, it's going to appear heavier visually than a lighter object. White space and negative space. So the positive space, where there is an image, weighs more than a negative space, which is where there's sort of an absence of something, or this idea also of white space. Kind of the same kind of thing. All right, so if you where you have the image, the thing, the object in your image, as opposed to the nothingness, the object is going to appear heavier. The other thing that's really important and really cool about forms is this idea of repetition, right? So what's really neat is if you can take the same shape and you can repeat it and arrange it in ways that are interesting. And that can be an incredibly powerful, and it's a simple technique, doesn't take a lot of assets. It does take a lot of understanding how to balance the objects and make them interesting, but it's a really powerful technique. Okay, so let's look at some famous art that has some of these things in. This is Da Vinci's very famous painting, The Last Supper, which basically shows Christ in the middle with all of his disciples, and it's the summer, or the night before the crucifixion, his Last Supper. So we have this table where they're all eating this meal and they're all talking, right? So one of the things that you notice when you first look at this painting is it seems very calm, right? And very serene. And one of the reasons is because how the elements are arranged. Again, we have this, it's very balanced. We have this central figure in the middle, which is static. And then on either side of it are these densely packed figures, right, that are balancing each other, like on this, fulcrum point. The other interesting thing is that they've used the architecture for linear perspective so that the vanishing point is actually right behind Christ's head. So the architecture is bringing your eye to the middle, and then you have this central figure which is balanced on either side, and also helping bring your eye to the middle. So again, in the end, we get this very balanced, focused type of experience from this image. And of course, one of the things that's giving it the stability is this huge, long horizontal line, right? That sort of calm and stabilizes the image. It's symmetrical, it's very balanced, very rational. The opposite end of the spectrum is Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. So of course, he was a painter who was notorious for his emotional life and turbulent life. But interesting is this famous picture is, first of all, we don't have any of these very calm horizontal or vertical lines. Everything is pretty much curved. Even this spire, which should be, and this bush, they're a little bit curved. They're a little bit wiggly, right? Even the lines, if you look at the lines, that gives this a highly emotional quality to this painting and these broken hatched lines. But you have the night sky arranged in these great curling emotional whorls, right? And then the balance of it, here we have our very small densely packed objects and asymmetrically balanced with this darker, larger object, which is going to be heavier, right? So a single one of these, very heavy, very weighty, balanced by these lighter things here. And then we have this color with this yellow that seems light, but also remember that it's warmer, so it stands out a bit from the cooler blue that it's against, right? So it makes it seem like it's coming a little bit out of the painting. It really catches your eye. So here we see it's not just an interesting topic, it's very interesting in the way shapes and line and color have been used to create an experience for you. Another good rule is this rule of 3. Of course, this is very easy for 2D people to work with, a lot harder when you're trying to plan out your 3-dimensional scene. But basically, what this says is that you want to figure out divide your image, arrange them into these 3 quadrants or whatever, and you never want to put anything in dead center, right? So here's the dead center, right, of this image. You can see there's nothing really there of interest, right? So we have this boat, which is in the bottom third, and we have this figure, which is on the right third of the vertical third, right? So that gives this kind of asymmetric dynamic quality. What you don't want to do, the most boring thing, is to have someone walk into a scene and have everything be in the middle. It's possible to do that if you definitely want to go for that really static, calm effect. But usually you want things because you want to intrigue players, right? You want to move them forward. So you're usually not going to be going for that effect. So you want to try and make sure things are a little bit off-centered but balanced.